The other 29 GMs, 26 of them would trade their whole team for our whole team. The house is not on fire. We're in great position.
With Durant, they at least entertained the thought for days and days and days. How are you not thinking about where your potential next destination can be?
For the most part, the craziest trade deadline in NBA history has officially come to a close. And thank goodness, because man, there was a point where I had to stay up to 3 a.m. to upload a particular video. I mean, we got it done at like 1:30 a.m. right when I was about to upload it. My internet went out, so I had to like stay up all night just to upload this video for you guys. And for the most part, every player that we thought would get traded ended up getting traded, except for maybe 3. And of those 3, Bradley Beal, Zion Williamson, and Kevin Durant, things have gotten really awkward, particularly in the case of Kevin Durant. And his future is very uncertain, and things are really uncomfortable right now. So before we get to the content, make sure you drop a like, subscribe, and turn on our notifications to get the latest NBA news to your device. And now that we got all that out of the way, cue the intro. Mic check 1 2 1 2. What's going on, everybody? Kevin Durant has had one of the most tragic careers I've ever seen in NBA history. I mean, if you go all the way back to 11 years ago, this was an individual that was seen as a player that could eventually finish as one of the top 3 greatest players of all time. Hell, if things went well for KD, he could have finished as the greatest player in NBA history. And honestly, the worst possible thing that could have happened to a career happened to KD. I mean, it's been nearly 10 years at this point, but we all know what would happen. He would come within a game of defeating a 73-win Golden State Warriors team, and then that very offseason would join the Golden State Warriors. I have to admit, it's a very tempting opportunity considering the fact that the Warriors had enough cap space to pay KD, Klay, Draymond, Steph Curry because of the cap space boom of that offseason. But considering how close the Thunder were to defeating the Golden State Warriors, everyone will always judge Kevin Durant for this decision. On top of that, once joining the Golden State Warriors and winning 2 championships, he felt unfulfilled and would leave the Golden State Warriors following the 2019 season, primarily because of this argument he had with Draymond Green.
How much did our argument against the Clippers drive you to ultimately lead the Warriors?
It wasn't an argument. It was the way that everybody, Steve Kerr act like it didn't happen. Bob Myers and tried to just discipline you and think that that would put the mask over everything. I really felt like that was such a big situation for us as a group. The first time we went through something like that, we had to get that shit all out.
Now, everyone knew the reason why KD did this was because he wanted to carve out his own legacy. He already got his championships and he still felt unfulfilled. So he went to Brooklyn to team up with Kyrie Irving. Since then, things have just gotten so sad for KD. I mean, this is a guy that went to Brooklyn to team up with Kyrie Irving. The Nets were built perfectly. And then Kyrie Irving came out and said this during the season that Kevin Durant was dealing with an Achilles tear.
Collectively, I feel like we have great pieces, but obviously it's pretty glaring that we need, one more piece or 2 more pieces that will complement myself, KD, DJ, GT, Spence, Karras, and we'll see how that evolves.
And it's just so funny looking back at this particular interview, and it would just get way worse from here. I mean, the Nets would fire Kenny Atkinson, a head coach that I was very high on over the past couple years. Any coach that could take D'Angelo Russell, Spencer Dinwiddie, Karis LeVert, and Jarrett Allen into the playoffs after years of mediocrity and no assets is a coach that you want to hold on to. But alas, as a result of Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving not approving of him, they decided to fire him. And they brought in Steve Nash, and then they said they didn't even need Steve Nash. Kyrie Irving would say, I don't really see us having a head coach. KD could be a head coach. I could be a head coach on some days. Kevin Durant followed up by agreeing with Irving, calling it a collaborative effort, and naming assistant and former interim head coach Jacques Vaughn as someone who could fill the role any given day. At the very end of the day, we know how this would turn out. The Nets would trade for James Harden. When they were playing together, they were dominant as ever. They mismanaged James Harden's injury in the playoffs, probably robbed themselves of a championship and alienated James Harden in the process. And after years of not getting along with the Brooklyn Nets, they decided to blow up the Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant experiment and trade Kevin Durant to the next destination he wanted to go to, the Phoenix Suns. And once again in Phoenix, it just seems like the same thing kept happening to KD. KD goes to a new team that has a tremendous amount of assets and plenty of potential. Remember, when Kevin Durant was originally traded for, the Phoenix Suns for the most part still had some very solid core players. They had Devin Booker, they had DeAndre Ayton, they had Chris Paul. Although there's a huge question of whether or not DeAndre Ayton could be depended on moving forward, for the most part the pieces were in place. Monty Williams was doing a solid job coaching them. He was just a few seasons removed from winning Coach of the Year, and alas, in one off season, this team got uprooted once again, gutting out the remainder of their assets to trade for Bradley Beal, which by the way made no sense next to Kevin Durant and Devin Booker because he pretty much did the same thing that Devin Booker did and was primarily an isolation scorer with a no trade clause. And on top of that, they fired Monty Williams and brought on Frank Vogel. After the big three would fail following their first season, getting swept in the first round versus the Minnesota Timberwolves, there was a huge question about what Kevin Durant's future was going to look like. Meanwhile, the Golden State Warriors were able to win a championship without Kevin Durant, and meanwhile, Kevin Durant was easily one of the most sensitive and insecure players in the entire NBA, going as far as to debate NBA fans in a Twitter Spaces debate that was titled "Kevin Durant is not top 5."
I just think how y'all even look at the game is whack.
But the one thing fans respected KD for was it seemed like this guy just wanted to ball. He's not in a relationship, he doesn't have a kid, and I'm not saying that's the wrong decision, it just seems like he's committed.
Kevin Durant way outside, delivers! Kevin Durant from downtown.
Today's video is sponsored by PrizePicks. They're running a Super Bowl free square for Patrick Mahomes. Lately, I've been doing really well with my picks. I've been averaging at minimum a pick a day, and I've been making my followers a lot of money. I pretty much discovered that if you run 4-man power plays and you hit at least 1 out of every 10 4-man power plays, you 10x your money. So you break even if you hit 1 out of every 10 of your power plays, meaning you only need to hit 2 out of every 10 of your power plays to make money. So far, I've been averaging about 4 out of every 10 of my power plays hitting, and my results speak for itself. People have been hitting me up in my DMs thanking me as well. If you want to give it a shot, I give away my picks on Instagram at TheFlightMike, and if you haven't signed up for PrizePicks, make sure you use my promo code microphone to get a free $50 when you make a play of $5 or more. And thank you, PrizePicks, for the sponsor. Fans would ridicule Kevin Durant for lacking maturity. There were times where he would even look for smoke on X, saying on Threads with the burner, "Come find me." A fan would say, "Don't you think you're too grown to be acting like this?" And KD would respond saying, "I lack maturity." And it's just really a shame because it seems like it's happening to Kevin Durant again. The cycle just keeps repeating. I mean, Kevin Durant goes to a young, promising team with a lot of assets, like the Brooklyn Nets, for instance. Said team decides to gut out the remainder of their roster for a third star. It ends up blowing in their face somehow. In the case of the Nets, James Harden sustains an unfortunate injury at the wrong time. In the case of the Phoenix Suns, they just made a terrible trade for Bradley Beal, and clearly it's not working out. And then said team tries to shop Kevin Durant once again. Now in this case, this is where things get really awkward because the Phoenix Suns all season long were adamant about not trying to trade for KD, with Matt Ishbia even claiming last offseason that teams were jealous of the Phoenix Suns and the way their roster's set up.
Ask the other 29 GMs. 26 of them would trade their whole team for our whole team and our draft picks and everything as is. Like, the house is not on fire. We're in great position. It's not hard to fix. It's not like we're like, hey, we don't have enough talent to win a championship. We have enough talent to win a championship.
Now this is where it would get very interesting. They were stuck in this situation where they clearly needed to trade Bradley Beal. He refused to waive his no trade clause because he didn't want to uproot his family, but they really wanted to get Jimmy Butler to pair with KD. Eventually that turned into trading Kevin Durant to get Jimmy Butler, so they started shopping Kevin Durant. And boy, did teams really want to get Kevin Durant. I mean, the Warriors tried to get Kevin Durant.
They tried for weeks to find a way to trade Bradley Beal. They could not find a way to trade Bradley Beal. So when they realized they couldn't trade Bradley Beal, they started having discussions with the Golden State Warriors about moving Kevin Durant.
But Kevin Durant didn't want to go back to Golden State.
There was a trade sort of in place between Golden State, Phoenix, and Miami that would have returned Kevin Durant to Golden State. But Durant stepped up and made it known he did not want a reunion.
I can't really blame him because I don't think the Warriors' chances are that much greater with KD on the roster, but at the same exact time, that does nothing for his legacy. He goes to Golden State, they win another championship. At the end of the day, they're going to say that KD needed Steph Curry in order to win a championship, and I guess that doesn't satisfy Kevin Durant. What's really funny about this is there is a follow-up report to this about the Golden State Warriors Warriors reportedly underestimated Kevin Durant's coldness towards the organization. Even a conversation between Steph Curry and Durant left Curry feeling that a reunion was unlikely. At some point in the last several days, Steph Curry had a conversation with Kevin Durant that convinced him a reunion was extremely unlikely, no matter how much the Golden State Warriors ownership group and front office collectively underestimated Durant's coldness toward a return, as one team source put it. Which I buy this 100% checks out with Kevin Durant's personality. He would be the type of person that would be bitter towards the Golden State Warriors. I mean, just look at the way he handles himself on social media. Now, here's what's surprising. As you know, the Dallas Mavericks tried to reunite Kyrie Irving with Kevin Durant.
I was told that the Mavericks were very aggressive, trying to find other teams to get involved so they could make the math work and bring Kevin Durant to Dallas.
Which, by the way, Nico Harrison really needed this, and Nico Harrison probably could have done this. Look at what the Lakers ended up giving up for Mark Williams. They gave up Dalton Connect, a future first-round pick swap, an unprotected first-round pick, and Cam Reddish. I mean, if you look at that trade, like, you guys know this, I've said this multiple times, a player of Luka Doncic's caliber should have netted at least like 7 future first-round picks. I mean, when you compare it to the Paul George trade that sent Paul George to the Los Angeles Clippers 6 years ago, when Paul George's best basketball was behind him, when you compare it to the Mikal Bridges trade, or the Donovan Mitchell trade, or the Rudy Gobert trade, I mean, how do you not at the very minimum get 6 or 7 first-round picks for one of the top 3 players that general managers would die to build a team around for the foreseeable future? And the crazy part is if they did get the adequate value for Luka Doncic, if they did get multiple first-round picks and Anthony Davis for Luka Doncic, then they probably could have rerouted some of those picks to the Phoenix Suns to get Kevin Durant, reunite Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving, and have Anthony Davis at the same time. Now, would that have worked? I don't necessarily know how I feel about big threes currently, but at least Maverick fans wouldn't think Nico Harrison's a fucking idiot. Now, that's not the only team that wanted to get Kevin Durant. The Memphis Grizzlies were doing everything to pursue Jimmy Butler. Jimmy Butler said he didn't want to go to Memphis, so the Grizzlies tried to get KD. And shout out to Bob Myers for leaking this.
Memphis knows what he said, because that's why they tried on Jimmy Butler.
Yes.
They tried on Kevin Durant. Problem is, this is what I hate saying, is like those guys said no.
That was kind of just news that just came out of Bob's mouth there about Memphis and Kevin Durant.
But that wasn't it. We all know how much Anthony Edwards loves Kevin Durant. During the Olympics this past summer, Anthony Edwards was attached to KD by the hip. He said repeatedly that Kevin Durant is his favorite player. So the Minnesota Timberwolves actually tried to pair these two at the buzzer of the trade deadline, but it fell through. So now things are very awkward between Kevin Durant and the Phoenix Suns, and he even said that he was blindsided by these trade talks.
Most of all of these conversations this week have been somewhat blindsiding, because going into this season, I don't think a trade was something he was thinking about. He has wanted to stay in Phoenix.
Now there's a huge question about what his future is going to look like, and Dave McMenamin and our favorite ESPN couple discuss it right here.
Beal, they desperately tried to trade him. With Durant, they at least entertained the thought for days and days and days. How are you not thinking about where your potential next destination can be? And how are you going to focus on the Phoenix Suns while you have all that going on?
Now here's a side note. This didn't stop Kendrick Perkins from taking an opportunity to troll Kevin Durant. Kendrick Perkins would come out and say he was the real leader of the Thunder. It doesn't mean your best player is your leader. When I was with the Thunder, it wasn't KD, it wasn't Russ, it wasn't James. I was the one leading. And just so you could understand Kevin Durant's personality, man, he just could not help it but take the bait. I mean, I know this may be a reach, but this comment is by far the craziest shit I've seen this week. Obviously, the craziest thing that happened this week was Luka Doncic getting traded to the Lakers, and the Lakers trading for Mark Williams while still retaining their best asset on their team, Bronny James. I don't know how they pulled that off, but now things are really, really awkward. And I'm saying Bob Myers defending Kevin Durant versus Kendrick Perkins on national TV levels of awkward.
Another organization, another failure for Kevin Durant.
Hold on, I just want to understand his failure.
Another organization, and another failure for Kevin Durant since leaving Golden State. It was a failure with the Brooklyn Nets, and it's a failure now. Okay, we're not.
Understand that.
No.
I just don't understand how it's his.
Hold on, Bob.
Because now the Phoenix Suns are locked in to this very awkward big three, and it seems like they're very delusional about where they currently stand. And to their credit, they're doing everything they possibly can to improve this team, whether it's signing Tyus Jones in the offseason, trading for Nick Richards, and then double dipping with the Charlotte Hornets at the trade deadline to trade Yusuf Nurkic and get out of his contract. I mean, I have to give credit where credit's due. James Jones is making some very shrewd moves in order to make this work out. But at the time that I'm recording this, the Suns are 25-25. Same record as the Warriors, same record as the Kings. They're currently locked in at that 10th spot for the play-in, and underneath them, breathing down their neck, is the San Antonio Spurs and the Portland Trail Blazers that have won 9 of their last 10 games. Yes, that Scoot Henderson apology video is coming very soon. You guys know me, whenever I get eviscerated by one of these players and my takes are wrong, I'll make an accountability video. So the question is what is Kevin Durant's future gonna look like? Because his contract expires at the end of next year, and at the same time, this was the final chance the Phoenix Suns had to move on from KD and get some real value in return for him. But I guess the Suns are kind of stuck in this place of being completely delusional of making this big three work and try to get adequate ROI in return for Kevin Durant. But Kevin Durant's value is probably one of the most unique things in the entire NBA. On one hand, he is still one of the best scorers in the NBA. Is it comfortable to fully depend on him to win you games? Absolutely not, because he is 36 years old and he sustained one of the most devastating injuries in NBA history, but the dude is still balling. I mean, it's year 17 for him, and he's still, for the most part, averaging what he's averaged throughout his entire career. It's truly remarkable what he's been able to do at this stage, but at the same time, if Kevin Durant demands a trade in the offseason, the Suns essentially become one of those teams whose backs are against the wall and need to trade Kevin Durant for peanuts on the dollar, which, considering what they originally gave up to get him, which was Mikal Bridges, Cam Johnson, Jay Crowder, and 4 unprotected future first-round picks in return for a 34-year-old Kevin Durant, man, it's just crazy. The more of these trades I keep talking about, the more I think Nico Harrison is an idiot for the trade he made. I mean, oh my God, the amount of assets the Nets got for a 34-year-old Durant is just insane. But I digress. Kevin Durant is going to be in this awkward position once again where he could potentially demand a trade. But even if he could demand a trade, where should he go to? Who could he help? What team would be willing to trade for him? And how do we know the same thing isn't going to happen again? The Suns still have a little bit of delusion, don't get me wrong. They hope Bradley Beal's contract becomes more palpable in the offseason as they hope to save their roster around Kevin Durant and Devin Booker. Beal will make $53.4 million next season before a $57.1 million player option that he will pick up for 2026 to 27. I love Evan Siddery's reporting here. I love how the assumption is there's no question in his mind that he is going to pick it up, because he is going to pick it up. Bradley Beal's value regressed considerably. His next contract isn't going to feature a no trade clause. There's no way he gets $57.1 million on his next contract. If Bradley Beal was up for an extension during this CBA, there's no way he would have gotten the money that he currently has. And bravo to him, more props to him. It's just the Phoenix Suns are an unmitigated disaster. You either trade Kevin Durant now for peanuts on the dollar in the offseason during draft night, or you just keep trying to make this failed big three work out with each other. And to their credit, they keep on finding ways to do that. They keep on introducing new players, they keep on making more trades, they find ways to shed salary, they bring in new centers, and they bring in new point guards, and they bring in new coaches. But this is their third coach at this point. At the end of the day, a part of me will always wonder what could have been if Kevin Durant stayed with the Warriors or with the OKC Thunder. Could you imagine what we would be saying about Kevin Durant if he was able to lead the Warriors with Steph Curry to a championship the year that Klay Thompson tore his Achilles? Not the year that he tore his ACL, but Klay Thompson would tear his Achilles a year later. That's when Kevin Durant would be fully healthy. I mean, the conversation and narrative around Durant would be completely different. But instead, all we're talking about is a huge what if, because it seems like no matter what Kevin Durant does, he's never happy with his career. So let me know in the comment section down below, what do you guys think about current state of Kevin Durant's career? What do you think can save him? What do you think could resurrect him? How could he alter his legacy? I'd like to hear what you have to say. Aside from that, I'm your boy Mike, and I'm dropping our mic until our next upload.